Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today we are here with a prophecy that I said in my last Aegis video. We are here with Direfull dolls. My first Dark State deck that I've ever played personally, and I really enjoy decks where you guard from places that are not your hand. I've discovered this weird addiction of mine. I fully embrace it, and this one really scratched that itch. Let's get right into the units. We'll start with the right line, of course. We'll start with the starter. Actually, quite a big fan of this starter, and it actually serves a really useful place too, because of its Direfull doll name. In case you break on Direfull dolls in Soul, this is like your last resort. You can call it out just to get the triple drive. Then the grade 1 Serenella. So when we're opened by the grade 2, you can look at top 7 to add 2 Direfull dolls to your Soul. This entire deck is a Soul based deck, as many of the Dark State decks are. Then for the grade 2, when we're opened by the grade 3, it calls itself out. That's really useful. These both also have a rearguard effect. She gets plus 5k when boosting, and she binds herself. And the grade 2 on place puts a Direfull doll from hand into Soul, and then allows you to draw a card and give itself and Vanguard plus 5k. This is useful as an aggro piece on turn 2, also just to cycle the things into Soul. And you get one for free. Yeah, you get one for free from the right line on your rearguard circle, so free value. The big man himself, Android man. Hey Arnold, yes, and the really beautiful silverware that Drogma Senpai pulled. So his effect is an X skill, where you counterblast 1 to pick up to the grade of your opponent. So grade, usually it's grade 3, right? And then call that many units out of Soul. So you call 3 units out of Soul, and if you called 3 or more, he gets plus 1 drive. If you're going first, you can only call 2. That's the only thing you really need to keep in mind. Against grade 4 decks, you can call 4. And if someone ever dares to play Fragila against you, let them know that you will call 10 every single time, even though it kind of caps at it kind of caps at 5 anyway. But, you know, put the fear of God into them. Let's go from high to low, starting with extra copies of our Vanguard. You know, as any deck does, we run extra Persona Ride copies. Then I run 1 Gradial's Gradale. This deck really needs its Persona Ride power to finish. It's like a sort of finisher turn. So I feel like having 1 extra copy of my Persona Ride really helps a lot in like consistently getting that power and that push turn. You got Direfull doll Liberata, very important piece in this deck. When placed on rearguard circle or guardian circle, you can put 1 Direfull doll from your drop in Soul. So this thing is part of the resource engine, resource cycling in this deck. Really strong. And then when she attacks, she gets plus 10k if you have a grade 3 Vanguard, so this does activate when going first. And at the end of the battle, it binds itself and then counterblast 1. I think I completely skipped over the most important part of Android, is when he is attacked, you can call 1 workaroid card from your bind zone with Direfull doll in its name to guardian circle and get a plus 5k shield. So the reason we're binding all our rear guards is to guard with him, and that creates a very tanky playstyle, very defensive playstyle, but we still get a lot of power from our effects, from our just general playings, that we still have a decent amount of pressure. Now part of that pressure is because we play 4 copies. I love guard names, guys. Providenza, I hope is the right name. She's a multi-attacker for this deck, so when you attack, you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Direfull doll's card name, a grade 3 as well. So both you and your opponents be grade 3. It gets plus 10k, so it's already a 20k attacker. And then at the end of the battle, this unit attacked, you can Energy Blast 3 and bind this card. And if you do, you can call 1 of your Direfull dolls out of Soul. Really strong effect. This enables you to do more attacks. It's already a really big swing by itself. Usually I combo this with like a booster to make 28k without Persona Ride, or I swing by itself already 30k on Persona Ride. It's just really good. And it puts another card in our bind zone. It kind of helps us turbo out our bind zone. We got the silver rare from his sneak. I'm really happy with it. Beautiful card. Next up, we're playing 3 more of the right line grade 2. So on place, put a card from hand into Soul. Draw, give plus 5 to itself and Vanguard. Playing extra copies. Mainly because we want, mainly for the name actually, we just want more targets to find, and we want more Direfull doll names to play with. As our last grade 2 in the deck, and the newest addition in this set, we got Direfull doll Shelby. I sincerely and utterly love this card. is what made Direfull Dolls irreplaceable to me, in the sense that I could not play this deck without this card anymore, and it just feels so much better to play with this card. So what does it do? When you attack a grade 3 or greater unit, you can put a Direfull Doll from drop into Soul and get +5 for every grade of the unit you put into Soul. At the end of the battle, bind itself. Really, really good. Also, if this attack hits a grade 3 or greater Vanguard, choose one of your opponent's rear guards and retire it. So it's control together with extra power, together with binding itself with shield value and recycling things in Soul. This is a really easy really easy 4-off. Next up we'll go over the grade 1s in the deck. 3 more of the right line grade 1s. Really solid. Then we're running 3 PGs, 1 Blitz Order, as any deck should. Our last Direfull Doll, probably the most important one, is Pelagia. Pella? Yo, Pella if someone plays Star Rail. You all know Pella is amazing. At the end of the battle, this unit boosted if you have a Vanguard with Direfull Doll in its card name. Bind itself, choose 2 cards from drop with Direfull Doll in their name, and you can put them into Soul. So this also gets +5k shield when you guard it from anywhere. Just anywhere, so it's always a 10k shield if you have a Direfull Doll named Vanguard. So this is 15k shield from Bind Zone. It's our best defensive piece, and it's our best recycler for resources. It is super important to find this card. If you don't find this card, you'll run out of resources, run out of soul, and just run out of steam. So this is probably the one most important piece in the deck. Then last up, the Spice, the card that at first I thought didn't work, but then ended up working because of the trial deck having another Direfull Doll trigger. It's short Sparta. Most important part is that she can bind a trigger from Soul, get +10k if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard. My opponent has a grade 3 or greater Vanguard. So why is that so good? Well, because we have a grand total of 8 Direfull Doll triggers. This is wonderful. These will allow us, when bound by Short Sparta, not only get an 18k booster, right? And this thing is then in Bind Zone, so it's a 20k shield. That's the biggest shield value we have in this deck, and they're very important to us. You don't need them to win a game, but getting this combo off usually really helps a lot, especially against decks that make really high numbers. And of course we're playing the last 4 crits. You can play any crits. If you want to play the effect crits, go for it. I just chose not to. I'm opting for the 3 front triggers, because I feel like the deck has enough resources. It just needs more finishing power. And your OT of choice, I am going for the Dark States OT just because I don't have any of the Elemental OTs. You could probably run any of the blue or red OTs. It's kind of up to you which one you prefer. Okay, I'm going to be showcasing the big push turn for this deck, because besides that there's not really a lot of difficulty up until this point. There's no real early game play on turn 2 or anything outside of calling your right line grade 2 maybe to get like a little advantage. All of the other cards are pretty much restricted to your opponent being grade 3 or you being grade 3. So generally, when you have a field setup like this, these two can be swapped, kind of refers to your preference, like how you feel like the columns better pan out. I'm going to do it like this for now. This thing behind one of these is important, and I'll showcase why later. First of all, we'll activate her effect to bind. Let's count the amount of cards we bind in one turn together, guys. So that's the first bound card. Then we swing here. This is a 28 by itself, 38 on Persona Ride. Then you want to resolve this card first, because this will allow you to cycle, so that's your second bind. In this case, we really want to get back Shelby. We really want to get back Shelby and Soul. And above that, just make sure to keep the grade 3 still in there. Let's recycle these two. You always want to have one of these in your Soul to call out with your Vanguard skill. It's really important to keep your cycle going. So you put those two in. Then her effects. Remember that you do need 6 energy for this turn, but this deck generally doesn't use energy outside of multi-attacking, so we should be fine. Then after that, you'll be calling out to Shelby. Oh, at this point things get a little bit woozy on your attack pattern. There's multiple options, right? You can swing Vanguard, pray for triggers. You can swing here too, or maybe just here, right? If you're persona riding for 30k swing, there are multiple paths and options depending on if your opponent saw a trigger unit, if your opponent didn't see a trigger unit. That kind of just depends. What I usually do is always get my multi-attacks out of the way first. So it's the 4th card we bound. Then we look in our soul. Well, there's nothing there to bind, there's nothing there to call out, right? So I just demonstrated a big mistake. And a big obstacle with this deck is sometimes you can just be a big dum-dum and misplay. In this case, what we should have done is swung here, used her effect, put the Great Tree into soul. Got plus 15k, swung for 25-35 for persona ride, bound herself, then swung here for 20 to 30, bound herself and called out this card. To then put another card when placed by her effects. So we already did 3 attacks, this is our 4th, got the triple drive, check crit crit crit, right? So you always want to leave at least, preferably 2 front rows open, right? So you can kind of play around that. Ideally you could always swing Vanguard first and then do what you want with your multi-attacks. In the battle this thing is bound, so we are already at 6 bind. Crazy. And then last but not least, we swing here with our trigger power. This can get up to like 61k. A 61k swing with a crit, it's very scary. She binds herself and potentially counterblasts one to draw another card. So what did we exactly accomplish this turn? We added 3, potentially 4 cards to our hand, and we bound a grand total of 2, 4, 6, 7 cards. You can all guard with these cards. There's only one problem, is that there's only 1 per battle, right? You can only call out 1 of these units to guard with per battle. That's the big caveat. But regardless, there's all the shield value lying here. There's 20, 35, 45, 55, 65, 75, 80k shield value in your bind zone alone. And usually because you're using up your bind zone so much and stuff, you have a pretty healthy hand generally throughout the entire game. And there's little to no chance your opponent can actually like generally kill you, you know what I mean? Like, of course things always happen in Vanguard, and if they check a trigger at the right moment, you can always just randomly lose. But generally you can play pretty safely and have a very clean turn, and just a very clean game of stalling out your opponent and pressuring them with really sizable numbers and columns. And with that we have another deck profile done and dusted with. This time we took a look at the Direfull dolls and all their bind zone shenanigans. Not our opponents, we're not binding up our opponent's stuff like some other things. We're binding our own things for value, and that feels really good. So I hope you all enjoyed this deck profile. Please leave a comment down below what other decks you would like to see, and until next time, take care.